Hey, what's up? This is Jeff with Final Boss Editing. I'm going to be taking a look at Zonts, or what was the actual? I think it's JP is the writer here. So let me actually pull it up if I can see it. Maybe I'm just being a noob. But yeah, so I'm going to be editing Zonce's first scene to his novel. And yeah, it is JP Carver. And his Amazon, I'll put that in the. So if you really like what you see and you want to buy his stuff, it's right here. Oh, I actually have to log in. I'm a noob. All right, here we go. So if you want to give him a shout, it's right there. Okay, so let's get started. Let me pull this up. I have some water, thank goodness. Violent death didn't shock Christina Larson as it would most people. It fascinated her, like numbers drew in a mathematician. That's a bit of an odd phrasing. Something to be really, really careful for. Floor most smoothly. So yeah, that's just something to be aware of, that when you kind of have a jar in phrasing like that, what you would want to think about maybe is it fascinated her. Period. Like it was, numbers. Like, it was all numbers to her. Mathematics, science. It was the human condition, because you already kind of have this "it was" structure. So you kind of break that structure here. So then, like, probably my recommendation would be like, it was all numbers to her. Mathematics. It was a study of the human condition, of people in their most primitive. I don't think you need a comma there. Well, no, you do. You need a comma. It's just odd. I would. This is also a bit telling. Show this. I think it's a good hook, and the fact that it's hey, how's it going, Fox? Excited to see you tomorrow. It's been very quiet out here in the west. Is it just you up here? And you're on top of it. Look at you, getting after it. Yeah. It was also studying herself, she thought, as she shivered in her jacket. Oops. A battle of wills between her and the person. Yeah, that is a fragment. Yeah, I mean, fragments, a lot of times, like, people like, who did, that one, the Meridian, Blood Meridian, the writer who did, like, the one about the father and their son in the post-apocalyptic world. This is a scene from Zonce's novel. So the first scene, oh, it's actually a bit longer than I expected. That's exciting. I got some more got some fun stuff. That should take me at least an hour. But yeah, so this is a scene from Zonce's novel. Can you guys see those? Can you see those notes clearly as well on the side? Yeah, cool. So yeah, I'm just gonna edit it, send it over to him, and hopefully this helps him with his writing stuff. But yeah, you only want to use fragments if it's like part of your tone, part of the way you're writing, or like this like fluid. It doesn't seem like that's what you're going for here. As far as like using fragments as like a writing device. So I would just be wary of that. Studying herself, she thought as she sugared. It was also a study in herself. I don't know what that means. So, like, I don't know what a study in herself means to this character. You may do as a writer, but for me as the reader, the thing that I need to really see is what does that look like for her introspection? Maybe show me what her internal thoughts are. Like, I'm a killer, and I violently kill people, whatever the hero thinks. Or through an action. Better through action because people are visual and action is usually much, it's the same truism as in life. Actions speak louder than words. So that's worth considering. She thought of herself as a warrior in some ways, a childish thought. But as she ran her thumb along the edge of the brand new detective shield on her hip, she couldn't help the comparison. An alley was her battlefield tonight. A shit-strewn corridor of black and stucco that had taken on a layer of ice and snow in the early morning. Once a place of darkness, it now stood lit by large standing lights which showed the worlds. It's a bit of an abstract. Very... And abstract descriptions are cool. Are cool and thoughtful. Like they bring up and they make us think. But they are less likely to and this is the thing. It's a trade-off, and it's one that I would really strongly discourage you from making in the earlier parts of your story, because you have to draw the reader into the scene, because like the scene and the story and the visuals are what carry the reader forward. Later on, hey, get abstract, talk about philosophy, but there's not much. Like the thing it's abstracting right now is exposition, right? Once a place of darkness, it now stood by large standing lights was the world's city's underbelly. So like we know we're in some film noir. So it's really and this I would really focus on the concrete details of the theme or the scene instead of the the alley was her battlefield. I don't know. It doesn't look like a battlefield. There's no battle going on. But maybe there will be one. Swings it like Tarzan. Hey, hey, Casey. So today we're editing Azant's or JP's first scene of his novel, which is pretty awesome so far. So yeah, I can go do a quick little recap and just start reading, and you can see the notes I made on the side if those are legible. Violent death didn't shock Christina Larson as would most people. It fascinated her. It was like numbers to a mathematician. It was a study of the human condition of people in their most primitive. It was also a study in herself. She thought as she shivered in her jacket, a battle of wills between her and the person who had taken a life. She thought of herself as a warrior in some ways. Childish shot, but she ran her thumb along the edge of the brand new detective shield on her hip. She couldn't help the comparison. Once a place of darkness. I'll just leave it up so if you guys can read along. Once a place of darkness. It stood by the standing light, world city underbelly. One person, Christina gulped in the frigid air and took a step forward into the alley. Sharp wind whipped out between the buildings, shifting her short red streaked hair in a swirling motion against her face. Swirling motion. I would just along her cheek. Just a little bit. That's a little bit too much to where it like pulls the reader out. Those very heavy descriptions. She grumbled, pulled her knitted hat down lower. Down a little lower as she stuffed as much of her hair as she could while she walked. This is something I'm working on my novel, which is why I'm going to be commenting a lot on sentence structure. This is a long sentence. Try to keep it short and simple. Like, no more than because this is like a triple compound, right? Like, so she grumbled, subject, verb, pulled her hat, and then comma, and stuffed it under as she could write. So that's like 3 different clauses, like 2 independent and 1 dependent clause. She could while she walked. As she could while she walked. Yeah, so that's a lot of stuff happening in one sentence, and it probably, in this case, because you have another pretty hefty sentence before it, could get trimmed down. So, yeah, worth considering. A uniformed officer stopped her at the wavering police line. He was young, clean-shaven. So this doesn't seem like a battlefield. Oops. Yeah, so using stuff like battlefield, those types of things, that's why abstraction, especially in scene description, is really tough. Unless it's what the character thinks. And this kind of, the alley was her battlefield tonight. We kind of know this from her perspective, but it doesn't seem to be really much of a battlefield. So then I'm beginning to be like, well, that's not. Like, so then I question kind of the character's judgment. Maybe she's like really intense. I don't know. He was young, clean-shaven. She guessed 4 months, fresh from the academy, since she didn't recognize him. It's a very accurate guess. I would just pull that. He held up a hand, offered a smile, and shook her. Please stay behind the line. Snow feel around him. Oh. Snow fell around him, layering on his hat and on the shoulders of his jacket. This would be phrasing, polish. These are the notes I give myself in my novel where I'm like, oh, the phrasing may be off here. Try to rework. She still remembered the hours she spent outside crime scenes, cooling her heels while the detectives did their work. Christina brushed back her jacket and pointed the shield on her hip, which still felt strange, and smiled back. Thanks, officer. I don't think I can do much for that body from here. He gulped audibly, and his face paled so that even his red nose and cheeks turned to pink. Sorry, detective, I didn't. No one told me you'd arrived on the scene. No worries, I know how it is. No one told me shit either when I had to stand the line. I just got here, officer. I don't know what that... Not sure what this chunk of refers to. It seems kind of out of place. She's a tough cop, yo. Duh. That's how every freaking tough girl cop sounds. That's how Murphy sounds in my head. So one thing to think about, and especially like you were describing, with self-publishing or with, traditional publishing, you kind of need to, I don't know what it is yet, but you'll want to be looking for a hook, a unique hook, or something that's like different and curious early on. Right now, and I'll put this note at the end of page 1, but right now it's kind of like, okay, crime scene, I get it. But it may be worth considering, like, hey, what's like what's the big, is there something unique about this world? Is it the same world? Is it just crime? Is there something more horrific about this crime? Like, those are the types of things that will stir the reader's imagination. So right now it doesn't seem like much. Like, this seems like it could be kind of cut. Like her kind of feeling at a crime scene. There's not much conflict there. It's not introducing me to a mystery. It's just, she just kind of is like talking to some chump that's like sitting. So I would almost want to cut closer to where that first question arises, whether it's like, this is some weird horrific thing we've never seen before, or like, this isn't just a detective story, this is about detectives in space and they're on a spaceship and like the stars are flying outside. Like, that's a bad example, but like, those are the types of things, like, what makes this unique? You want to get to that unique thing earlier. Not sure if yeah, so that would be my recommendation. Okay. No worries, I know, okay. She bent forward, brushed back an escaped clump of her hair, and took a look at the name plate on his uniform. Collins. So how about you hook that tape up so I can get by? Yes, ma'am. He stepped back, gripped the plastic, and lifted it while she ducked under. It was like steeping? Steepy. So, yeah, just spelling stuff. He's like, steeping into another world. He's like, steeping into another world. She thought as she hunched her shoulders, and it felt like the temperature dropped well past 0 in between the brick walls. Sorry. I can't resist the accents. It's part of the joy of editing other people's works, is you get to do silly accent. She thought and hunched her shoulders. It felt like the temperature dropped well past 0 between the brick walls. Psychic? If I could spell psychic, I guess my spelling has to go under as much scrutiny. Takes that Detective Gates as your partner? She stopped, body stone still for a moment, then looked back and felt the muscles in her face tighten. I must have created a hell of a look because Collins actually took a step back. The police tape bent around him and kept going farther, and kept him from going farther. What did you say? Collins stiffened and turned his eyes to the pile of snow. Ma'am, Detective Gates is already in the scene. He got here about 5 minutes ago. I assumed... Son of a bitch. All the pride that had filled her since getting the call from dispatch washed out like a tidal wave. She's definitely from El Paso. That's true. Just be careful. Like, this is a big metaphor to tie to this emotion. So it jars the reader. She could imagine him staring over the body that was supposed to be hers, working on her case. Detective. She left Collins with a grumble that mixed together with the worst curses she could come up with. And headed down into the valley. I guess this is Collins. El Paso. She left Collins with a grumble, followed the isolated trail. He didn't even notice her yet as he chatted up a pretty little uniform who twirled. Because you could see him already. So this is good. It's conflict, but there's like... But I don't know the context. So what gives like a cop not liking her other cop friend or like the other like dirtbag detective is not an uncommon trope in these novels. And using that trope is okay. But what makes the trope yours and makes it unique is usually taking it and changing it to have its context in your world and making the world clear enough where it's like, okay, this is, I get it. Like, she's actually ticked off at him. Yeah, so... Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think it just needs some context because it feels just like a trope, but there's nothing in the world that makes this trope unique to your story. So I would push to find that, whatever it is. He didn't stand up. He didn't even notice her as he chatted up a pretty little uniform. Like, that's another very stereotypical, like... How is this going to be unique in your world? I mean, because think about it this way: all the different backstories. I mean, because that like a guy that likes a pretty uniform. Maybe he has a wife. Maybe the wife's pregnant. Maybe that makes him a really big dirtbag. So those details and like all the different possible details, even though cop hitting on a younger chick is a very common trope, all the different details that can go behind it can make it unique and very character telling. Maybe he just broke up with his girlfriend, and like those types of things. That's a bad example, but like that's how that character comes through. Because right now these are just people being like, oh dang, it's Bill, I hate Bill. Whereas like maybe Bill, like maybe he accidentally killed somebody, or maybe he's like really immoral, or those types of like contextualizations early make me be like, oh well, that makes her a better character, or like that makes her a good person because Bill's a bad person. Maybe Bill's a really good guy and maybe she's not so great. So those are the types of questions I would encourage you guys to answer. Yeah, just this crew, the late night crew. Flirting on a crime scene, she tried to calm her anger as she stalked down the alley. Coming to the ME, who was tied up for work already. Morning, Larson, he said, and ducked and waddled around the body before standing in her way. And where are you going with such rage? Stick around, that kind of heat makes it easy. Flip off, Dewey. This detective, wait, no, Collins is the bad guy. So a lot of different characters. Medical examiner, okay. These contractions, I know that, is not a common, and write it out all the way. Think about this, Dresden Files it has a medical examiner character, which is one of the reasons I know it. Hey, Silent Willow. So Dresden Files has a medical examiner character that has, that plays in that scene, but he never, Jim Butcher never contracts it to Emmy. So even though that's already established, he's a medical examiner. So I would encourage you to avoid contractions like this, especially ones that may be on the verge of being jargon. Okay, so on a crime scene. So pretty much to give you guys some context, Silent Willow, this is a crime story. So a cop just got to a crime scene, a detective. She found out that another detective was already there investigating the crime scene, and she's really ticked off about it. So she's going to go do something, which is good. It's some good conflict. The challenge is, like I was talking about a little bit earlier, is trying to make that conflict unique to this story is going to be one of, I think, the things that will help this, abbreviation. Ooh, good call. Edits on edits. Indeed it is. Edits on edits. /bow. /bow. Oh, it doesn't let me do /bow? Jeez, Twitch. What the heck? All my World of Warcraft commands have gone no longer in service. As you stand erect, okay, wall around the body. A lot of characters. Nobody with something that's really unique yet. But looking for one that has... It seems like there's like a lot of the like fill in the like, you know, hey, there's like the tough chick cop, there's like that dirtbag like older cop that's like kind of the big shot, there's like the kind of the quirky medical examiner. So you know, I think I'm going to really underline this point because it's beginning to be a little bit thematic, where it's establishing a few details about the character that makes them unique, or trimming down the other characters, like the number of characters, so we can focus on one, so we can at least get to that unique aspect. Like, because we had the little, like, you know, newbie cop who, like, let her in, and, you know, that character, I don't think he's going to matter very much. So, like, that's, like, why is he there? It's just one more thing. The reader is like, do I need to worry about this guy? Maybe. So those are the types of things that you may want to acronym. No, I think that was a miss. That was a miss. I have not started. We're gonna edit the submissions either tomorrow or Saturday. We're gonna be doing a Dresden Files stream on Saturday, and then probably edit it after that. But this is just another submission, but not a Christmas. It's not a holiday one yet. Yeah, that's true. I think that was my. For some reason, I've had contractions on the mind lately. That's like pregnancy. Weird. I don't know. One of my friends is pregnant, so maybe that's it. They're having a baby. Morning, Larson. She said, okay, stick around. That kind of heat. A bit on the nose dialogue, so make sure... and then I would at least clarify, like, she saw Larson, like, look at her, like, red cheeks, and he backed up, like, kind of like the other guy was doing. You know, it's a bad example. So I would just show those moments, because it's kind of a bit weird for someone to be like, hey, why are you in such a rage? Well, I'm mad because of such and such. Or she says, okay, flip off, Dewey, and she's only glanced before her eyes locked in. My, give a girl a detective shield and all her manners go out the window. Might have to report you back to your parents. Jeez, is that the medical examiner? Probably need a dialogue tag here. I don't know if that's the evil medical examiner. I don't know who Dewey. I thought Dewey was the... Larson's the medical examiner. Dewey is... Collins? Maybe it's Dewey Collins? Is this... I don't know who Dewey is. Yeah, that's a bit Fun. Yeah, it's a bit funny. Dewey, he was a squat type of man, barrel-chested, round-faced, wore a pair of half-moon-shaped glasses that magnified the wrinkles of stress and age. She knew him before he went to the academy, before she even knew what she wanted from her life. There wasn't more than a few weeks between his visits to her home, and she remembered him from every family gathering because he was her father's best friend. She went to say something smart back, but her eyes caught the vulgar, if somewhat picturesque view of the corpse behind him. The woman lay framed in a throne of garbage and snow. So that's a good use of imagery. And that's usually just like one or two details, whereas like some of the other ones it gets a little bit overly done, or it's not like really mirrored. But this would be a different word anyways. Effing hell. The blood lay brilliant. Why is she freaked out about that? She doesn't seem to be green because the blood, okay, William's face gave it untouched snow. So I'm associating her, like, freak out with the sign of a corpse, which, yeah, which I wouldn't expect from a detective. That seems a bit out of character. So, that's strange. She was young, thin, attractive. Woman's face gave untouched snow around her head and run. Okay, which is paler. She'd been young. Okay, not much since the killer had seemed fit to give her windpipe a lot more access to air. Took the words right out of my mouth, Dewey said from behind her, laid a hand on her shoulder. She shrugged it off and got herself back together. This wasn't her first body, nor her first crime scene. Damn it, she would not let the sea eat at her right now. The face had done it. The ghostly, almost alive look struck her first. She couldn't help but feel. So, I see that this corpse is more shocking, but I still don't have a mystery or some sort of hook that is drawing me into, like, I need to figure out, like, this is, like, there's some sort of, like, pentagram around it. And it's, like, this evil thing in, like, Da Vinci Code, for example. But it doesn't. I mean, that's about as shocking as it gets, you know. Oh, hey, how's it going? Good to see you again. Ojinsta. So right now we're editing one of our viewer stories, JP. I actually posted his. He's written a few awesome books. There you go. I'll click it in here. JP Carver. He was on a few nights ago. So I'm editing his story. So right now, I think this is a first draft. But pretty much what's happening right now is a detective just got to a crime scene. There's another detective at the crime scene already that she doesn't like, and they're kind of in conflict. And the body that's there is kind of very gory and kind of shocking. So that's kind of where we're at in this story so far. She bent down, draped her arms over her thighs, and let her hands hang free. The only wounds on her appear to be her throat, with some minor bruising across her forearms. Clarify your. It's a bit unclear who's who. Her hair stuck to her forehead with the adhesive of her own blood and melted snow. I would just do of blood and melted snow. She wore a coat. If she wore a coat, it had gone missing. If she had worn, because you're referring to like past, because it's all in past tense. You'd be had been wearing. She had been wearing a coat. It had gone missing now. and should have worn one. So this is a funny sentence. I would just rephrase. Yeah, like whatever. That's, I mean, you just at least want to break it up into 2 sentences. It's a bad example, but hopefully that helps. Oh, night, Foxy. Ursos caps. Totes. Caps. Ursos caps, yo. The woman wore a knee-length red dress and probably had looked killer in it. If not chilled to the bone. I'm not sure where you're going with that. Yeah, so I wrote it out because I don't see JP on, or else I'd be talking through this note. Yeah, I think this is actually a really good example of the challenge of or the importance of showing through description and not telling. And this is something I struggle with. It's something like every writer encounters. Because you're saying like it, if not chill to the bone, like, you know, you're trying to get to this abstract, like, oh, it's a chilling that this beautiful girl is now like dead. But I would really focus on the description communicating that, and like the fact that like you're telling me that and I'm not feeling it, to where that's a jarring description. Like if it had been like, let's say, like really really clearly shown through the scene, like I would have been like, yeah, totally, it's chilling to see this like beautiful lady. But it's kind of a bit, one, the phrasing is kind of weird, but two, it's a bit jarring. So like I would really focus on like, the character's reactions. So, like she felt like her gut turn, like looking at this like beautiful like girl broken in the snow, like like glassy eye, like use those like things like glassy eyes. And you do go into description, being torn in the viscose, torn in the room, just subs out from the fabric, inverted her eyes slightly to look back to the face, had a good amount of time. So like this line probably can be cut because like the killer in it. Yeah, I like, that just like she had probably looked beautiful. Like I would almost go into more detail. Like she had like sharp green eyes, like she like, like lean figure, and then do like that compare and contrast, like, right, and then but now, it's torn. She's kind of like, exposed. It's like this much more graphic scene. Yeah, indubitably. J.P. Carver. I think so. This is the first draft, so I think his other stuff is probably. I just want to also give the writer's caveat of like, hey, it's the first draft. Everybody take a deep breath. But yeah, so a lot of his. So even when he was on the channel earlier, he seems to be a pretty sharp editor. So I imagine that he's probably going through this as well, and before it gets to a final draft, he'll like a lot of these things, I'm sure will be shored up. Woman had a good amount of time ahead of her, even in death. Even with death having settled in, Chris could see the life had aged her well beyond her years. So it seems contrasting. So like I would just really sharpen what you're trying to communicate about this dead character and what makes it unique. So, like, for example, like in the I'm going to use the Dresden Files because it's mystery stories and noir mysteries. That's the guy who wrote it. Thanks. Um, um, like in the Dresden Files, it was actually a similar thing. A guy and a girl died in a hotel room, but like the thing that made that mystery something that I had to figure out as the reader was all the doors were locked. Their hearts had been exploded out of them, like their hearts had like shot out of their chests, and like both the characters, like both like the dead people were, like it was naked. It was just this like very intense scene, like, but that this is a like intense scene. It's a very heartbreaking kind of thing, but they're, the unique question in the Dresden Files mystery of this nature was how did their hearts burst out of their chests with all the doors locked. That's something that you're like, well, how did that happen? Like you kind of are starting to like wonder and like, okay, well, it's magic. What kind of magic? That has to be really hard to do. So you kind of have that like engine that's starting the characters discussing and dialogue. So I'm hoping that there's something like that here where there's like, well, this is some weird thing that we don't know yet. We got a name, Chris. Okay, don't know yet. I gave the first one of my texts, found a trash can. We got a name. I heard he asked specifically for you. What for? There's something you'll have to ask him, dear. Smile. Maybe he wants to make friends. Yeah, we'll see how long that lasts. Good luck, kiddo. So she still hasn't gotten. So it's page 4. I mean, I would really want to get to the conflict earlier. The door's locked. Is a red chest. Hearts bursting out of chest is mystery enough. Yeah. 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 Very true. You guys, if you like film noir, Dresden is an extreme example, but it's pretty well done. And the books become more fantasy. Like they don't stay in the noir genre past the first like one or two. And that's probably because it's just a challenging genre to write in, and the story evolved past it a little bit. But worth reading. I liked the fantasy elements enough to like read the noir because it's not usually my thing. But also really good mysteries are things like Father Brown. The Innocence of Father Brown is like a really good mystery series. Very well developed, and the thing you see a lot in mysteries is having to cross genres, because mysteries kind of not necessarily have run their course, but it's harder to get that unique thing. Like, so you look at Da Vinci Code, it's like thriller mystery, where there is that mystery to solve, but it's paired with a thriller. It's like cops late at night. A little bit more of like the introspection, like that's very common in like noir. It's really just mystery, honestly. The noir is just more of like a what's the right way of putting it? Like a tone, like a tone of like, you know, hey, like it's a tough cop and it's like dark out and, you know, dead girl, she was beautiful, like that type of thing. But it still is just mystery. But the thing you see with Dresden is, you know, they're pairing fantasy with mystery. So they use the engine of mystery, but they kind of add that extra element of fantasy into it to kind of power it a little bit more. I don't know if this is what the writer is going to do here. He could just do a straight up like mystery, and that works, and you see a lot of those be really successful. But you do have the challenge with when you're just in one genre, it's present day. How do you make it unique enough, or like the question, the really tricky question, introduced early and fast enough to like kick the reader forward to the next page. So right now, I don't know if that's happening. One is there's a lot of probably scene that doesn't need to necessarily be there yet, like her having the kid lift, you know, earlier they had, you know, some young cop let her in, that was a few lines of dialogue, so a lot of that stuff can get trimmed like, and just get to the conflict of the scene, like, so get in sort of like the scene moral of the story, get in as late as possible. We got into this specific scene a little bit too early, and we're kind of floundering because of it. So start the scene as late as possible to communicate what the scene needs to communicate for the story, and then get out once you're done with that. Like, get out early, start late, get out early in scenes. And I'll write that down because that's important. There we go. Lots of fans. Lots and lots of fans. Maybe like Google image search will help us in this. Let's see. That's always like my go-to. Yeah. It's actually very apt. Let me see if I can get my magical software to add window capture. Oh. What? Hold on. Technical shenanigans. There we go. That's noir. This is obviously modern day, but that's kind of like the general feel, at least the tone. Cool. Anyways, okay, let's check 2 more allies. It sucks, but he could have used another dumpster. Tech smiled thinly before going back to the blood spatter that had melted through the snow. Some would find him cute. Gates turned to her. Who's Gates? Gates. A lot of characters. I think that almost more than anything will be a really big challenge. Like, and they're all named differently. Like, so I don't know, because you're referring to some people by both names, some people by Collins, but I don't know if it's Colin. Like, you know. And also, I don't really have a description for him, so it's a lot of like, wait, no, is Gates earlier? Face holding the same odd smile. Okay, no. Wait, what Gates did? He dropped a female uniform and now was ear to one of the techs. Someone would find him cute. Many of the officers did. If the chatter in the locker room was anything to go by, I never understood. Was some of the girls okay? I would almost, so he's introduced up here, but there's no description. So I was just writing, yeah, I mean, the reason I would want that character description earlier, though I would still think you should remove the character, is is because the reader starts looking back and they're like, oh, Gates, am I supposed to know him already? There's no more description here. And also using or two main so like let's say Gates is the pretty boy and like he has like $1,000 smile. So like every time he comes into the scene, like he flashes $1,000 smile, $1,000 smile. So like every time you see Gates, you can use those same details, and that's like one of the benefits of detailing to like, nope, this is $1,000 smile, $1,000 smile, same guy. So like, because your reader has to do the work of keeping track of your characters, and that's like a good way to help. Like the old film noir movies always have oscillating fans. It's true. Blade Runner was an amazing movie. But actually, another great point. That's a mystery story, and like a noir mystery story, but paired with sci-fi. So that's something that, if you like writing mystery, that's something you'll see very commonly, because you sometimes have to pull in elements from other genres to get that like, ooh, unsolvable mystery kick out of it. And it also is, mystery is a good tool to power up. So let's say I want to write a sci-fi story, a way to make sure that story is going to roll forward is introduce a mystery early on. And that's just a powerful engine in fiction. So that's that's actually a really good point. And it's actually like, well, yeah, Blade Runner did it because it works. Face to face made a bit more sense. He had the grizzle look. I'm going to start reading a little bit faster, just because it's getting late over here. Hadn't shaved for a day or so. His messy light brown hair was longer than some of the women's on the force and stopped above his ears. She found herself staring, and fixed her eyes on a point behind him. Is it Gates Larson? Is it Gates Larson? Now face to face, he looked really good. Oh, then he's saying Detective Larson. Okay. He held his hand. Had the whole grizzled look going for him. I would consider having her be in first person because you're in her head a lot. I said I was gonna go faster and take less notes, but so much for that. Her head a lot. Consider her first. She found herself staring. Okay, Detective Larson. I mean, it seems like she's a bit. It's a bit kind of stereotypy, this lady so far. So I want to see some stuff unique for her, because right, like she's crushing on the cute guy. She's kind of freaked out by the horrible bloody scene, and she's like plays tough with the newbies and like tough lady cop. Those are okay to use, and like I think, you know, those tropes exist because they sometimes do happen in real life, but sometimes they don't. And I think what you'll find is the thing that engages the reader the most is maybe you set him up to expect that, but then the character surprises the reader, because surprise is the name of the game. You have to set up a situation where the reader thinks he's like, oh yeah, this is just gonna be another one of those tough cop ladies, and then it turns it on its head, and then we're like, oh no, like this is actually a person. They're actually interesting. Maybe she's like really passionate about, like, art. I don't know. Like it's a bad example, but you kind of get what I'm saying. Detective Larson, she held out his hand as she looked down at it. The cold had already turned the bare skin into a raw, painful-looking color. How long could he have been out here? She took his hand, even the leather gloves. So did he murder her? See the murderer. Dispatch called me. I wasn't aware another decay. Sorry about that. But what about the detective she didn't like? Whatever happened to that guy where she's like, damn it, it's not this guy again? Detective Gates is already on the scene. Oh, so Detective Gates is the guy she hates. Got it. Okay. So, but she doesn't... Doesn't seem that angry for all her. Yeah, that's a bit surprising. Sorry about that, but I put it in for you. Did you get the assignment? No, she said and dropped his hands. Because I've been required by those bigger shoes, then I had to take on a partner. You were on the list, so I picked you. That's the guy, sorry. So this is what? Some kind of test for the newbie or something? No, he said, and motioned her to follow him together as they headed for the body. She stayed a few steps back and stared at his leather jacket while trying to figure out what kind of game he was playing. I've seen you work as a uniform, and now you stack up to detectives who are a number of years older, and decided that if I had to be saddled with someone, I'd take you. You're being saddled? What about me? I don't get a say in this? As the chick has the raspy voice because it's a noir. Don't I get a say in this? There it was, the smug look she knew would be coming. Only Will kept her from punching it off. Sorry, he said, and turned towards her as he walked backwards with a thin smile. Newbies don't really have much to say about these things. Don't even vets have any pull. So I say we just make the best of it. Seems like he's being pretty reasonable. So then that's like where the dialogue and the conflict, the dialogue and the conflict will be really heightened by backstory. So yeah, like because right now it seems a bit arbitrary. And if I do stop, okay, guess I owe you $5. Told you she wouldn't be happy, Dewey said, and tossed a grin her way. I know, but I had hoped, Gates said as he set his gaze back to her, his eyes gray. Stopped in front of her. I guess I owe you $5. Okay. So they bet that she'd be pissed off. As long as she's just a hard case. Eyes gray, fresh off the wagon, Larson. I have almost 3 years on you working homicide, and that's not including other departments. He held up his hand as he went to retort. Yes, I know. You lost Virginia with dead bodies not long after getting out of the academy. And yes, I know you worked with other detectives. Doesn't mean a damn. We're partners, whether you like it or not. Or not, she said, and tried her best to let her temper simmer rather than explode. I'll take it you're primary and I'm just a drone for you. She always been like this, Dewey? Dewey just shrugged and went back to the body. Look, Larson, this is your case. I'm just here to steer you if need be. But you're running the show until I'm told otherwise and deem in my report that you should step down. She felt the simmer rush to a boil and crossed her arms because she probably hit him if they were in her pockets. I think it's good conflict, but I want... I'm going to grab a quick water refresh. I will BRB. Mickey Rourke. Pretty boy Rourke. By the way, how is the writing going for you two? I know you were working on the screenplay for a little bit, Silent Willow, and Casey, I know you're cranking on your novel. How are those coming along? I get it, you're just my damn keeper, right? Hot shot. Yeah, just give me a reason she has this big chip on her shoulder. So what you're saying is I can't handle it. The smile came slowly, flipped through anger, because, I mean, no one would blame you if you couldn't deal with this. girl would haunt her if she walked out. You just love that. It looked like she kind of... Like, I don't really get why she's so shocked, but, like, this posturing is, like, so experienced. Screenplay's been grounded? Sad day. Well, it was good. I liked it. I thought the twist was really good at the very end. I remember it still. So that's a good sign. I like the tide of molasses. Yes, indeed. Same with mine over there. So I feel your pain. Hence, I would, the more I've done the editing, though, I would always encourage more people to try it because it is so good for one's writing. It's helped me a lot. In especially editing my own work, because you see a lot of the same challenges in both. You just love that, wouldn't you? Okay, smell a chuckle, jacket pocket, evidence bag, snatched it from his fingers, wedged it between her arm and body, broke the seal. 28 according to her PA license. She ran her finger 50 in cash, 220s and no 10, no credit cards. Pull out a white card, Pandora Club. A bit cliche, isn't it? It's a sex club over at 30 and Walker. How do I feel about that decision? Well, I mean, one saying cliche is like... I mean, yeah, if you're like, hey, it's a bit cliche, she's from a strip club or whatever, that's true. So, you really want to, like, bring out this is different because, like, what makes this different? So right now I haven't seen anything too much that stands out or anything that's really launching me towards, like, a solid goal. So I'm still excited to read Casey's. You should. This is the first chapter. If you want, you're welcome to submit your first chapter, and I'll be more than happy to help. One of my really good friends did that for my novel, and I realized that my first chapter was not necessary, which saved me a lot of time on the rewrite. And I was like, man, why did I write that in the first place if I knew it wasn't going to be necessary? But anyways, more than welcome. I'm happy to help out. It's always a lot of fun editing. Good for the brain. Third eyebrow. Okay, sex club, you know that. Carlo could be a client. She is streetwalker. Hell no, she's high class if I ever saw one. I'm sure you've seen quite a few in your time. Not sure who's talking. There's a lot of characters. I would use dialogue tags unless it's absolutely perfectly clear you know who's talking. And you want to be 100% sure on before you cut a tag. Yeah, if you pull a dialogue tag out, you want to be darn well sure that it's like doesn't belong. Let me see here. Alright. Come with the job. She folded her wallet together. So, Ojinsta, do you have any writing stuff, or are you working on anything? Comes the job, her address puts her in a couple of blocks from here. She folded the wallet together. She handed the bag back to Gates, went back down to Dewey. What do you have so far? Basically what you see now, detective. He said it casually. Liver temp is a great predictor. Do where she is, but by rigor and temp, fear the things 9 and 2 this morning. You should just gaze to her. Might be able to narrow it down a bit more when I get back to the morgue, but don't count on it. Chris nodded. Do the best for her and that. Again, I can tell you more when I get her back, but it looks that way. It's a little strange that it seems to be the only real wound on her. She didn't try to fight back. Oh, okay. So, good. Because, like, mysteries always eventually, like, usually with story form, you find out about human nature, like the dark within, like, and the Truby, John Truby, does a really good analysis on the history genre. He has like a special on it, where eventually, like, the great history is like where the detective realizes that they're the monster too, just as much as like the perpetrator, and so like those types of mysteries are very like the creepy parts of the scene, or like the things that we don't understand. Those are like how you open the door into like seeing the true like beneath, and that's how, like, eventually the hero starts to like find the mystery within, and it turns. So that's like one of the really good things about the history genre. Maybe, but it was while she was here in the alley, wrong direction. What are you doing? Gates asked, but she ignored him and found a good mark to start the replay. She was walking, going somewhere. Friends' boyfriends seemed to fit better. For a boyfriend or money. It's starting to snow. You a weather girl now? Everyone needs a hobby. Shut up. She looked up at the clouds and watched the train of them go from left to right. Maybe she's happy for it or annoyed by it. Either way, she's freezing. She doesn't know why the hell she picked that stupid dress. And the jacket did all that stuff for her numb legs. Price of fashion, Dewey said, and followed her with his eyes as she paced down the alley. She couldn't say she enjoyed having an audience, but she needed to get the idea of what could have happened. Evidence would fill the holes. Interesting. Yeah, I'll come up with some recommendations. I think I'm almost at the end, so I'll go a little bit faster. Chris stopped by a few feet from the body. She hears something. Maybe a can shifts in the wind or a killer makes a noise, but she stops and turns and looks. She did. But Gates' voice ripped her out of the film in her head. Wait. The hell's in within herself? She hears something. Maybe a can shifts in the wind or a killer makes a noise, but she stops, turns, and looks. She did so, but how do you know that? His hands folded behind him. Her heels, they left two semicircles here in the snow from the tip. It's a bit scuffed from people walking over it, but it's there. She pointed, and he came up and looked down. After a moment, he gave a nod and backed away. So she turns, Chris said. Oh, good. Big city girl like her can be easy prey. She paused and furrowed her brow. Dewey, did you find anything? A pepper spray or a hidden knife? Nope. The detective's searching. She did the same in the film that played in her head. So she continues, now on edge. Maybe she hears out the noise and she's blindsided. She reaches out and pointed at a large circle around where the girl's body lay. She struggles, but not for very long. Guy gets his knife against her throat, and she was posed, she said, and glanced. That's my guess. Nicely done, Larson. You're saying nice full warm fight. I think we're finished here, but you'll let me know when you find something else. I love how you say instead of if. Naivety is refreshing. Good. Stalked to the end of the alley where she paused and turned back and said, come on, we're going to kick on some doors. She heard him sigh. Okay, interesting. What's the risk if the criminal not found soon? So like again, I referenced the Dresden Files because I gotta hand it to old Jim Butcher. He did a pretty good job. Where the stakes of failure, the is really important. So like, what happens if they? So we know the goal. Um, we know they need to get the bad guy. We don't know how long they have to do it. That makes a big difference. You don't have to establish all three of these now, but it's the script shadow. Their big old maxim, right? Goal, stakes, urgency. I'll type that in there. But goal, stakes, urgency. But we have a goal, but we don't have stakes. I don't see that this person may go on like a murdering, crazy killing spree if it's not stopped immediately, or the urgency where hey, like there's something written in the snow and blood that's like there'll be 2 more by tomorrow. Then this like new detective chick really's got to get her stuff together. I think the 2 things I would really think about, and then I'll put like my notes. And then overall, so good. I think the description. Oop, that's not what I want. I want to do bullets. Good. It's weird. Whatever. And then improve. Any comments from our readers? That's all of chapter 1, or our watchers. Sorry, are you guys still alive out there? Well, any comments you have for good old JP? If you like this, he does have his Amazon. I think it's still copied and pasted. It's up here. Swoop. Just to give the guy a plug. Really nice dude. But yeah, interesting to see. I mean, like, even though he's, got books out there, I'm sure he has like, people who've generated interest. Everything early in the drafting stage always needs work. Like stuff that I write needs work. Stuff that everybody writes needs work. And I think, the stuff that needs to work on is start later. Get to one of 2 things. The conflict between detectives, or the weird part of the victim's death. Fast. And like you just have to like get to the meat quick. Especially in like the market now where like there's so many ups and downs, and who knows, like get to like where the story, get to the story, get to the story. We have a lot of fat early in the narrative. Like the guy lifting up the thing, like, I think you could trim 1,000 words off this chapter. And it would not be bad in the least. Remove some of the characters and focus on making 1 or 2 more built out, unique. Define So, yeah, that's kind of the main stuff. Yeah, even for good book. Yeah. And I think that's, sometimes it's important, but like the fat is only okay um, if it's going to tie in later. So if you use it, then the reader will be happy because they'll be like, oh, like it came back. This is awesome. But if you don't, and it just, so like that's what you'll see in good books. It'll feel like fat in the beginning, but then later on you'll be like, oh, it was actually a setup and I didn't even realize it, and that's really satisfying. I get the sense though that usually, especially because it's a first draft and this happens, like stuff like having this sequence with like the guy lifting up the, rope for her and stuff like that. Probably that definitely is more likely to be risky. But yeah, that's pretty much the notes. I'm gonna send this to the writer and post this up. But yeah, give JP a shout. I think this is awesome. It takes a lot of guts getting your work out there and having it looked at. I mean, I think a lot of his description and stuff is really good, and it's just really, these look like first draft challenges, which is, hey, need to build out my characters. Hey, because you don't know them that well. It's your first draft. So those are the types of things that it seems like where we're at. But I'm going to do the same thing as well, Silent Willow. Get some rest, guys. Good hanging out. And, yeah, feel free to send over any writing you have over to me. And if I can actually spell. Take it easy, Silent Willow. And I'm going to be hitting the sack as well. Have a good one, guys.